Hi, my name's Joe Minerick. I'm the Senior Vice President and Director of Research at the Committee for Economic Development of the Conference Board. And welcome to our public policy webcast today on the Council for Inclusive Capitalism at the Vatican. A very important topic and a very unusual perspective on this issue, which really is relevant to all of us. Um, Today, we're going to go through, try to answer really four critical questions. And they include um, what is the current state of capitalism, looking at it from a moral perspective? What is the Council on Inclusive Capitalism, and how is it going to address the problems that we see in capitalism in today's world? What issues will the Council address? And how can business leaders who see this as an important concern get involved? Um, for those of you who are new to these webcasts, just to let you know that the webcast is eligible for continuing professional education credits. There is going to be a space provided for you to enter your name and your email address. Do that. Over the course of this webcast, and you must participate live to qualify for continuing credits. You're going to see three pop-ups, and you will need to click OK on each of those three pop-ups as we go through the webcast, and you'll need to stay online for the entire broadcast. So please stay with us for that. Allow me to welcome our guest this week. He's Mike Archbold. He is a trustee of the Committee for Economic Development. He's also the Chief Executive Officer of the Council for Inclusive Capitalism at the Vatican, which is the topic of our conversation. His professional background includes he was the chief executive officer at GNC Holdings, that's General Nutrition, for those of you who walk past storefronts around the country. He also has experience as the chief financial officer at Saks Fifth Avenue and also at AutoZone. So he's had a long and extensive career. Probably the high point of that career was serving as a co-author with me for an important book by the Committee for Economic Development on the subject of business regulation. So, Mike, I got to ask you the first question that immediately leaps to mind, and that is, what is a disreputable guy like you doing hanging around the Vatican? But seriously, folks, I'm just giving my buddy a hard time. Um, what we really want to talk about here is what is the Council on Inclusive Capitalism, and how did you come to be engaged with it? So fill us in a little bit as we begin to talk about the issues that the Council is going to address.
So sure. So thanks, Joe, and thanks for having me. And I appreciate everybody's time and attention because it is such an important issue and really an opportunity for us all going forward. As for my own involvement to your first question, Joe, my background, as you know, is really in retail. So whether it be GNC or previous to that, I was actually the CEO at Talbot's, the women's apparel retailer, and really came up, bit of a journeyman through all of retail over the years. And then as I stepped back from my day-to-day responsibilities and got more involved in some other opportunities, I actually had the opportunity to be more involved with CED. So actually, I will trace my interest in this area back to Joe Minerick's book on sustaining capitalism. So I'll give a little plug for Joe's original book on sustaining capitalism. And Joe had actually offered me the opportunity to review some proofs as that book was coming to publication. And it was of great interest to me. So I began a lot of conversations with Joe, which ultimately wound up in the co-authoring of the book on smart regulation. So As I got further and further involved, as it then turned out, then Lady Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, who is actually uh, the founder and really the impetus behind the creation of this council. She has another nonprofit that she runs called the Coalition for Inclusive Capitalism. And she's been doing that for a number of years. So this has been an area of keen interest for her over the years. And what happened was, as she had promoted to the Vatican the potential to create this council, and ultimately was agreed by the Pope to allow the creation of this council and to work with us to create it. As Lady Lynn was putting it together, she was also in touch with Roger Ferguson, who, as we know, is the chair at the conference board and is also the chair at TIAA. He is also one of the guardians for the council. So under the heading of Small World, Roger was able to make the connections for me with Lady Lynn de Rothschild, and I agreed to step in with literally no background in the nonprofit space, and limited background in terms of this space, but agreed to step in to really help for at least the first year to get it going, to set strategy, and to really get it started. So it's been an amazing ride. It actually only started back for me back in September of 2019, which was the point at which I got involved. So I look forward to sharing my experience, and more importantly, sharing what the council's been doing with this group.
Uh, Wonderful story, Mike. And one of the things that we'd like to do is to talk with the audience a little bit about whether there's a problem, whether there's an issue, why is the Vatican engaged this way, and to kind of take people's temperatures in this regard, we wanted to ask a few poll questions. So for those of you out there, we're going to have three questions. They are yes or no questions. And we appreciate your answers and your views. And then we're going to show some results from polls of the population at large and some of business people to get a sense of what people think. So, first question: does capitalism today do more harm than good? So, if you think it does more harm, the answer is yes. If you think it does more good, the answer is no. Question number two: can a company improve both profits and conditions in the community? If you can do both, the answer is yes. If you're skeptical about the ability of firms to do that, the answer is no. And then finally, should CEOs take the lead on change rather than wait for government to impose change? And we'd like your answers there. I'll give you a few more seconds to answer those questions. And then we'll close the results and take a look at what some polls have suggested from a different audience. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's lock that. So it looks like most of the respondents, 85% of the respondents here, are saying that capitalism does not do more harm than good. They're optimistic about how capitalism performs. An even higher percentage says that firms can improve both profits and conditions in the community. And more than 9 out of 10 say that CEOs should take the lead on constructive change rather than waiting for government to act. Let's take a look in the slide deck at what kinds of results we get when we ask the population at large. And those results are really a little bit different. So Mike, you provided us with some results here, some polling that you've sampled. Tell us a little bit about how the population at large believes about these questions.
So thanks, Joe. So the polling that we're showing here is actually from what's known as the Edelman Trust Barometer. And Edelman each year does this trust barometer. They have an N of greater than 34,000 with statistically significant representation in many, many countries. And interestingly enough, if we look at under the why is this needed, where this group has said that only 15% believe that capitalism does more harm than good. Across this broader group of 34,000, they believe there's 56% of them who believe that capitalism does more harm than good. So clearly there's a difference, and that's an important difference for us to actually explore. Perhaps it might be related to Miles' law, which is something like where you stand depends upon where you sit. And since we all sit in a different place, it does impact our perspective on things. As my good friends at Insigniam Consulting would tell me, that we all bring our filters, and we acknowledge them. But what is also interesting, and I'll share a little bit forward, is this is a group that has a great deal more knowledge and insights regarding what capitalism has done. And in fact, capitalism has lifted billions of people out of poverty, right? So capitalism has done tremendous good. But the important thing for us at the council is to say that it needs to do more. It's not done. Capitalism has evolved over the centuries and needs to continue to evolve. It needs to continue to address the challenges that we face, whether it be for people or for planet, et cetera. There are remaining challenges that exist out there. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, because that's a notable difference. Then if you look under why now, so first we talked to why, then why now, then why us, right? Under why now, this group, this 34,000 strong, agrees that a company can take actions that both increase profits and improve conditions in communities where it operates. So that compares with 97% of this group. So that is actually a great outcome, and shows great advanced thinking. I'm a big fan, always have been, of what is sometimes referred to as both end thinking, right? We tend to often create either or challenges. And in this case, it is not an either or. A lot of people like to sometimes refer to the challenge of stakeholder capitalism like it's an either or. It's not an either or, it's an and. And there's the opportunity to do both. And again, this group not only sees that, but sees that even more strongly than the broader group, according to this check. And then the last one, why should we as CEOs be the ones who would be stepping up? Well, if you look in the middle column there, that shows that 74% of respondents in this survey said that agree that CEOs should take the lead and not wait for government to impose. Now, that was 94% of you all who said that. And again, that's really important. But more importantly is the perception, I think, that 74% of people in a broader market are giving us permission to step up. We could say we need to, but they actually give us permission to do that, and really important for us to do that. And then amongst those respondents, those who are employees of other companies have actually said, 92% of them have said that employees say that CEOs should speak out on these current issues. And that is equally important, and I think really speaks to the CED mission, right, which is reasonable solutions in the nation's interest. Which is really important, and has consistently and historically called upon CEOs to be statespersons, and that's really what that is calling to mind there. So really, really important. So go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just going to say, Mike, I think in one sense there's a bifurcation between the first question and the second and the third, where the first question suggests that the population at large is fairly skeptical about how capitalism is working now. So 56% saying more harm than good. But they seem to see the potential, not so much as the audience today of business people, but they do seem to see the potential. So it's suggesting that, as you say, it's permission. It's also maybe even a little bit of an urging of calling on business people to step forward and start to address these kinds of problems. All I think really enlightening, motivating, and possibly telling us that we have a job to do. Um, so, looking at now, this is another picture that you provided to us, and this is global poverty. And this is just to emphasize one of the points that you made a moment ago, that capitalism has achieved a great deal historically.
So absolutely. So if you look at this, and this actually comes from the World Bank information, and if you look back several decades, 80 to 90%, or even back at the turn of the 20th century, it was still between 70 and 80% of the world population was living in what was considered absolute poverty. So things have changed very dramatically. And I think that the involvement from the Vatican and from the Pope in particular is really critical here, and provides a base of moral authority from which we can act. It's kind of interesting. I'd like to, if I could, I'll just share actually a quote that I pulled out from the Pope, and it reads this, and I'm quoting from the Pope. The elements of the conflict now raging are unmistakable. In the vast expansion of industrial pursuits and the marvelous discoveries of science, in the changed relations between masters and workmen, in the enormous fortunes of some few individuals and the utter poverty of the masses, the increased self-reliance and closer mutual combination of the working classes, as also, finally, in the prevailing moral degeneracy. Now, what's interesting is I'll admit to a slight legerdemain on that one, because while that is a quote from a pope, it is not a quote from the current pope, Pope Francis. It is actually a quote from Pope Leo XIII, which he included in the opening to his papal encyclical in 1891. So it is kind of an example of the more things change, the more they remain the same, right? Le plus ça change. But also really important to realize that piece, which he put out as a papal encyclical called Rerum Novarum, which is translated as "of the new things." Uh, it also had a subtitle that was called "The Rights and Duties of Capital and Labor," and this has really become a major foundational tenet of Catholic social teaching. And it was also an interesting treatise on economic theory from a pope some 130 years ago, or nearly 130 years ago. So Pope Leo XIII at that point, with the world in so much poverty, 1891, if you look at this chart, 70 to 80% of the world in absolute poverty. It was also the time that a lot of different ideologies were being tested or being discussed, amongst them being capitalism, communism, unionism. There were a lot of different ideologies being debated. And he felt compelled to speak out. And there are a number of people who, when they look at Rerum Novarum or other pronouncements from the Vatican, are quick to point out that the Pope was critical of capitalism in this. And in fact, he was. But he, in fact, reserved his strongest rebuke for socialism when he went through this. And in fact, in a bit of prognostication by Pope Leo some 130 years ago, wrote of the potential for the adoption of socialism, and I'll quote: "The door would be thrown open to envy, to mutual invective, and to discord. The sources of wealth themselves would run dry, for no one would have any interest in exerting his talents or his industry. And that ideal equality about which they entertain pleasant dreams would be in reality the leveling down of all to a like condition of misery and degradation." So a very strong rebuke from Pope Leo XIII. And actually, when I read it, I couldn't help but think that Churchill was actually paraphrasing Pope Leo XIII when he said that socialism's inherent virtue is the equal sharing of misery. So there is much criticism from the Vatican, from the popes over the years about capitalism, but even stronger criticism of socialism. But when he put that out, there was a lot of focus, and there were many examples, many tests, many little pockets of capitalism that were being tested throughout Europe and elsewhere. And those tests resulted in the evolution of capitalism, which has resulted in the tremendous reduction in the level of extreme poverty, literally removing billions of people from extreme poverty over the last century. But what's interesting is if you look at this chart, while the chart seems really good, you're still down to perhaps 10% or more on some of these dates. I'm just looking here. But this would still imply that there are still as many as 700 million people across the world that are living in absolute poverty. So while this is great progress, there remains much more to be done. And importantly, the progress that has been made has not been as geographically broad-based as we might like. For instance, the levels of absolute poverty in sub-Saharan Africa far exceed these numbers on here and create tremendous opportunities for us to be considering going forward.
So we've got problems. We have a mandate from the population. They don't believe we're doing well today. They do believe that we could do better. And we have the council created. I assume that it's fair to infer from the Pope's creation of this council that he believes we should mend it, not end it. But he's also been very outspoken about problems with respect to capitalism. And so tell us a little bit about how the council is organized to address these problems, to take care of the challenges, to deal with inequality, to deal with remaining poverty, but to do that in a constructive way, and to do that within the way that the functioning of the capitalist system, which has achieved a lot, but which has left many people unsatisfied.
So yes, happy to do so. So I'm just going to forward some of the slides here. I'll even go a little bit further. So I think it's important to realize that in order to be able to address this, there were a number of things that were identified as necessary. First and foremost was scale, that this needed to be something that could be of significant scale. And to do that, we've actually reached out to a number of leading organizations, significant large organizations throughout the world to actually get us started. But it was also important for us to have representation across the entire ecosystem. This isn't an industry-specific issue. This is not a geography-specific issue, and it's also a non-sectarian issue. This is not a Catholic issue, because clearly what we need to do on capitalism is not about what Catholics can do about capitalism. It is much broader. So while the Vatican and Pope Francis are providing the higher moral authority, it is left to business leaders to actually drive it. So this is truly a business-led organization. It is being CEO-driven. It does have that higher authority. We do have representation across the entire ecosystem. But it is also importantly committed to having real measurable future goals. So one of the things that we wrestled with when we did this is there are a number of other organizations that are in the space, and some have struggled to get consistency on goals or mandating goals, et cetera. We actually took an approach to say, let us allow each one of our organizations to develop its own goals and commitments. Rather than say we have to have the same goals, especially since we're crossing industry, crossing geographies, we thought it was appropriate to allow each one of the organizations to figure out what is most important for them and what are the things that they can address. And what we were going to bring is the need to publish them and to put out real measurable commitments, and then to hold ourselves accountable going forward. So those became kind of the biggest opportunities that we thought that we had to really differentiate ourselves going forward, and why we thought that we could really truly address the problem. So combination of business-led, high moral authority were some of the big ones, but also having those specific goals and publishing them and holding ourselves accountable. We think that was really important, and that way we could be sure to avoid any perception of, so-called virtue signaling, greenwashing, et cetera. That we were really going to have concrete, measurable objectives. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone's going to hit them, just like we all do in business. We set objectives and we work towards them. We'll recognize that, and we'll recognize progress towards goals, and we'll recognize that we may not hit goals, but we also may recognize that we achieve them and then set higher goals. Um, Over time, we do aspire that there could be some more common goals, whether they be industry-specific goals, et cetera, or even more broad global goals that we could all align on. But for the initial set, we felt that allowing each one of the organizations to set their own specific commitments as to what was most important to them, to their communities, to their associates and their customers really made the most sense.
So you're talking about a certain amount of decentralization here. You're engaging different people from different parts of the world, from different industries. Tell us a little bit about the structure of the organizations that you're planning and that you're working with.
So happy to. So I think I really touched on this. So this was the moral imperative, and I kind of really covered all of this in talking about the history of how we came to be. And it was really the Pope's challenge back in 2016 that he put forward that need for concrete actions, and to actually have personal sense of responsibility. And then we took that to heart. And as I said, Lady Linda Rothschild was instrumental in proposing to the Vatican that we would actually take this on, and that was in 2018, and that's when the Pope did endorse our work, and we began in earnest. And then I shared here a quote from November of 2019 when we did have the opportunity with a number of the Guardians to go and visit the Vatican and actually present our plan to Pope Francis himself. And in reviewing the plan, I captured a couple of his quotes that he shared back with us, talking about an economic system that's fair, trustworthy, and capable of addressing the most profound challenges is urgently needed, and that this form of inclusive capitalism, leaving no one behind, is a noble aspiration worthy of our best efforts. So with that, we began our best efforts. And more specifically to your point, Joe, we began them by trying to get to some level of scale by working with some of the large organizations that we could reach out to. And I'm thrilled that we have the kind of involvement and true engagement from these leading CEOs who have dedicated time, talent, and treasure to really make this happen, which has really been a tremendous blessing for us. And what this group does is this group provides kind of the governance and the leadership and the agenda setting for us over the past year plus. But they've also put forward their own working groups so that they could work with us to create what we needed to do, which was creating guiding principles and then actually working towards their own individual commitments and being willing to publish them. This is also the group that provides the funding for the Council for Inclusive Capitalism, and they have been doing that. So very appreciative for the great work that they've been doing. And to your question around where they come from, you can see the names, but just to kind of give some perspective, so we're now at 26 global leaders representing $10.6 trillion in assets under management and some 1.7 trillion in market cap and 1.7 million employees. But if you look at the map, you can see clearly they have operations from across the globe. But on the right-hand side, you can also see that there are a number of sectors that are represented. So everyone from banking and financial through healthcare and industrials, insurance, obviously investment management, an important part, but even through luxury and beauty, professional services, et cetera. And of course, philanthropic efforts, and then a number of technology companies. So thrilled with the representation that we have here, from a global perspective, from an investment perspective, from a true support perspective, and having that broad ecosystem. Very important for us to really represent that broad ecosystem as we try to make a difference here, because it will take effort from corporations doing what they need to do, as well as thinking about how to invest differently, if that makes sense. So we are happy that they've been able to do that.
So you've got a very broad range of organization here. Now, clearly, um, this organization got started with an idea among a small group of people, Lady Rothschild, to get the process going. And the beginning of the process of building the organization has entailed you and your colleagues going out and asking people if they wanted to join. Um, at some point, and clearly the first places you go are people who are relatively identifiable. You call them up, you ask them to participate. I suspect from the roster that you put together that a lot of the people you reached out to have decided that they want to be a part of the organization. Um, but at some point, you're going to start bringing people in who want to participate. What about labor? What about women? How are you going to be and smaller rather than larger enterprises who do not, spring to the top of your Rolodex? What are your plans for broadening out the constituency of the council, and how can you see that moving forward?
So thanks. So that is part of what is the impetus for the conversation today, because we do have aspirations to continue to broaden out this group. We do have targets that we're working on to bring in representation from labor as well as from others. And while we do have representation from women on our list of guardians, it is certainly not to our own aspirational levels. Part of that is the challenge that we all see in terms of the CEO ranks amongst business. So, I think we have 25% of our guardians are women, but only 6% of the S&P 500 CEOs are women. So we do have a challenge on that front, but we, like so many other companies and boards, are addressing it, and we're working actively to improve that. Part of what we want to now be doing, now that we have, really arranged for the funding and the support from this Guardian group, which has been tremendous, is we now need to broaden that base even more. So this is not intended to be a group just for, mega-sized organizations. We want this to be something that would be something that organizations and CEOs would want to join, from smaller organizations down to even, mom and pops. We think that if we all start rowing together, we think that there really is an opportunity for us to make a difference. And that will require everyone to do their part. So one of the things we're looking at doing here today is opening this up to members at the conference board and the Committee for Economic Development to consider whether they want to join. What we're referring to this group of potentials as stewards, as stewards of inclusive capitalism. You'd be involved in many of the same things that the Guardians are. That is, aligning with the guiding principles, and then setting your own targets and commitments that you would be putting out and setting in the public domain, and then holding yourselves accountable to making progress against those goals. But this would not be the group from which financial funding would be required. So we're really opening it up, and this is one of our first opportunities to bring this out more into the public. In fact, we really don't even have our website up and running yet, because we do want to have this where we do build some more critical mass before we actually do launch it in a more public manner. So big opportunity that we think we have today to broaden this base, and the members of CED and the conference board are amongst the first ones that we're offering that to.
So this is almost the coming out party of the council on this webcast. Is that a fair characterization?
That is very fair. So, and we're thrilled to be here, and we know that CED and the conference board in its history has done so much and has had true CEO statespersons that have been willing to step up in urgent times and do what is necessary. And we really do believe that this group will do that again. And this is one of the ways that this can actually happen.
Okay, so for those of you who are joining us on this webcast, you can say you were present at the creation, not that creation. This isn't the Book of Genesis, but at the creation of this Vatican Council. Um, Mike, tell us a little bit more. We've touched on it a little bit, but some of the issues that have come up in the discussion so far, the ones that you consider to be of relatively high priority, and you've said that you're going to allow the members of the council to focus on the issues they consider to be important. But give us a sense of what the library of concerns is that you believe you need to address.
Sure. As a former CEO, when we set about doing this, we did it from a strategic perspective. So doing it from that same strategic perspective, we did what so many of you normally do, which is set a set of vision and values. And so we created that vision and values for the Council for Inclusive Capitalism. So, and from my perspective, as in a strategic planning sense, that vision is that point on the horizon that we're always aiming towards. But horizons are funny in that they keep moving away. So we keep aiming for it, but it gives us a point to know how to get there. And then the values really help guide us along the way. So in the vision, which really has been enumerated in the guiding principles, which have been worked with the guardians themselves, who have actually, really lent their insights and put pen to paper and really help us put this together. We've created a vision that really talks about creating a long-term value for all stakeholders, but focused on a couple of primary areas. One being equality of opportunity for all people to be able to pursue prosperity and quality of life without regard to their socioeconomic background, gender, ethnicity, religion, race, age, etc. And then also to focus on having equitable outcomes so that those who pursue opportunities in the same way will get equitable, reasonable results. And then we also want to make sure we have fairness across generations. And that one is broad because it also is the one that touches on the planet, that makes sure that we don't do things in our generation that result in long-term costs that future generations would have to bear. And then it does also take into account fairness to those in society whose circumstances prevent them from full economic participation. So the safety net, which is important for us all, and to recognize that is something that is incumbent upon us to make sure that there is a safety net for those who do fall by the wayside and through no fault of their own are not able to participate. So those are kind of the visions, and again, they are broad and intentionally so, because again, we want people, organizations to be able to find their own commitments within the context of that shared vision. And then I'll turn to the next slide, okay, which actually has the values, and again, this will be available for folks who want to use it, but I'll just touch on, some of them are values that you would see in other organizations, like fair, responsible, trusted, dynamic, and sustainable. So these were the values that we're going to make sure that we keep in mind as we pursue the vision that I mentioned before. So important just to get into a little bit more specific so that it is not just so ethereal, if you will. I would share with you here that we worked with a number of our guardians and the working groups within the guardians to figure out how we wanted to pull together all of the commitments. And what we decided to do was focus them under the four priority areas that were laid out by the International Business Council at the World Economic Forum. So the IBC group within WEF established their four priority areas, referred to often as the four P's of people, planet, prosperity, and principles of governance. So we are going to take all of the commitments that folks are working on that are going to achieve the vision that we have, but we're going to group them into these four priority areas. Now, we will also be tagging them to the SDGs, the UN SDGs. And we felt that that was important because there are a number of organizations that that are in this space that are doing great work. And what we wanted to make sure we were doing was building on some of their great work. We didn't want to just be creating a new framework just for the sake of creating a new framework. So building on the IBC's four priorities, using the UN's SDGs to be able to tag the commitments to those sustainable development goals. We thought that those were important and opportunities for us to seek alignment with other organizations. So we've done that. And the four Ps that we've put out really, again, are people, planet, prosperity, and principles of governance. And this is going to enable us to really focus on long-term value creation and create the kind of positive social impacts, address the needs of the planet, make sure that we can do things to address the health and well-being, address equality amongst peoples, and ensure that we can actually do a job of creating wealth for people that is shared broadly, and make sure that we're taking care of our communities at the same time. So again, the opportunity here is for organizations to create specific commitments that they think are meaningful. I did see in one of the questions that came by here, someone was asking for examples of specific commitments, and happy to, because it is important. So for instance, we may have an organization that defines its goal around, let's just say it's women diversity within senior ranks. Well, they may say, you know what, we've done a great job of so far improving women in our senior ranks, however they so define it. So it might be their vice presidents or officers or CEO team, however they define it, that they would improve it or have improved it maybe to 29%, but that they've got a goal of improving it to 40 or even 50% by the year 2030. So what we've done is, when we are reviewing the commitments that come back from the guardian groups, the steward groups, the working groups that are putting forward their commitments, we use the same kind of criteria that you would use when creating a strategic plan. And I've actually gone back and shared with the group one of the acronyms that we used to use in my own past, which was to make the objectives SMART. The acronym SMART standing for making them specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-based. So, and it doesn't mean that they have to have something that says we're going to do this tomorrow. They can be longer-term goals. So another one might be that they are going to have, zero greenhouse gas emissions, however they so define it, scope 1, scope 2, et cetera, by the year 2025, by the year 2028. So the goals may be different, the time frame may be different, but the important thing is they are specific and measurable, and we can measure progress over time. And we believe that if we do that, we really can address the challenges that we all have for people and planet. And capitalism can continue to do what it has done, lifting people out of poverty, ensuring that there is prosperity for all, and making sure that we're taking care of each other and the planet along the way. If we do that, we really do believe that we'll be fully compliant and living up to the aspirations and the challenge that Pope Francis has put out for us.
So, Mike, you've mentioned that you do believe that this mission transcends the boundaries of religion. So we can't achieve a Catholic inclusive capitalism. It has to be a universal inclusive capitalism. Have you gotten any response yet? I know it's early days. Have you gotten any responses or have you done any specific outreach to other religious denominations to see about cooperation, or is that something that has to come in the future?
So it is on the agenda for the future, Joe. So it's a good question, and we are certainly open to it because this is not a Catholic issue. This has to, pardon me, be a broader issue, and we do believe there is that opportunity. Now, I would share that amongst our guardians, we have representation from a number of different religions. So, we do see this as non-sectarian. We do see this as a universal or Catholic small c kind of opportunity going forward. So we do have on our agenda to be able to reach out to other religions for endorsement, engagement, involvement, because we do believe that really is the opportunity for us all.
And within the Vatican, you know, one of the questions that I think has to come up, I mentioned early on that we've heard the Pope expressing some skepticism about what he saw as an excessively materialistic culture. I guess a lot of people must wonder, what specifically is the engagement of the Pope? What elements of the Catholic Church are a part of this effort, and what are the prospects for really having buy-in from the Pope personally and from the Church?
So great question. So we've been very fortunate that we have actually received feedback in actually the starting and the intent to create the Council for Inclusive Capitalism from the Pope. And then, we have, as I mentioned, we've actually even had the opportunity to present our plan to him, which he was very much in favor of, and I shared his quotes and his feedback with us. But equally importantly, he's also assigned to us Cardinal Turkson, and Cardinal Turkson is the protector or the I'm sorry, I've got to make sure that I get his title correct here. He is our protector, but his title is the prefect for the dicastery for the promotion of integral human development. Now that's a mouthful. So what is that? The closest corollary I can give to you is it's like a cabinet position within the Vatican, sometimes referred to as the Roman Curia, right? So this is the equivalent of a cabinet position where he is responsible for promoting integral human development. And this is one of the projects that he has taken a personal interest in. And he has spent time with us. He has spent time on calls with a number of our guardians. And he has spent time with us when we visited in Rome last year. So he has made for a lot of time and a lot of space for us to be able to work together with them. And we look forward to him continuing to do so. So we continue to see the opportunity to work with them. And really, it's to be able to achieve that goal that Pope Francis laid out for us of taking a more human approach to this, but making sure that we put forward concrete actions that can really address the challenges that we have. To your point, yes, the Pope has been critical of capitalism, as has almost every pope for the last several hundred years. And as a leader, and we can all appreciate this, when businesses do well, we tend to take a moment to celebrate the successes and then turn to, okay, yeah, but we need to do better. I view it as that is what he's actually doing. He's challenging us to do better. So while capitalism has lifted billions, literally billions of people out of poverty, it also shows that there are 700 million folks who still remain in poverty. And so therefore, there's still much more to go.
You've got a real roster of stars among those guardians, and can you give us some examples of some specific ideas you've heard from them about things that you're your outreach could achieve? What could CEOs specifically do to try to help to advance your goals and your agenda?
So what we're hoping to be able to do is really make it integrated with what the CEOs are already doing to drive their business. But let's make sure that this is part of it. So putting forward their commitments like they would as part of their strategy to say these are the things that matter. We're going to actually make public these commitments and work towards achieving them. So I'll give examples. So for each organization, that may be very different. We have organizations in the healthcare and medical field, from Johnson and Johnson and Merck and others. So they may be focused on things like medicine, but they also and research and development, but they may also be focused on making it affordable for people who can't. Other organizations, for instance, we've also got asset managers and investment managers involved. So they may look at it from the perspective of, well, we want to make sure that we are encouraging diversity amongst boards, and therefore we'll use the power of the vote to be able to influence those types of outcomes. Or we may have, large multinationals that want to focus on having a zero carbon footprint, or deploying capital towards zero carbon initiatives. Or they might be in the energy sector and actually be directly investing in those. Or we may have banking organizations that would be focusing on the level of support and underwriting that they're doing in the green bond market, or what is now coming out as the COVID bond market. So these are all places that we think organizations have an opportunity to figure out what works and what is right for them. And they have really stepped up, and we've seen that particularly of late during the COVID-19 crisis, where these same organizations have not only done the philanthropic thing, which is great, but they've also really stepped up and provided access to PPE. They've actually reset their manufacturing operations to be able to provide sanitizers. They've provided financing for COVID bonds. They've they've gone about it a way that works for them, but it has really been across the board in the ways that they've been able to really make a difference. And those are specific examples, but we would be anxious to work with any organizations who are interested to figure out what would be their contribution to this, what would be specific to them, what really matters to them, to their customers, to their associates and employees, and to them individually, that they want to figure out how to make a difference.
So, for the folks who are participating in this webcast, there are some things that they could do, I assume. Possibly at the corporate level, possibly at the individual level. What's the stage of development of the organization? How can people who are listening to this webcast look toward ways in which they could contribute?
So if anyone is looking for ways to contribute, at this point, it would be, as an organization, that we would be looking for folks to be able to get involved, and again, sign up. In order to do that, just fast forward, what would that mean? It would really be, if anyone's interested in taking their organization to be able to become a steward, I'd ask them to reach out to me at the end of this presentation. You'll see my own contact information, but reach out, and the process would be relatively simple. We do have those guiding principles, which is basically the vision and values that I laid out, and aligning with those guiding principles, that vision and values, and then establishing your own commitments. So what are the ways that you want to contribute towards the achievement of that vision, right? And then we would then engage with you to go through those. And then as you became involved, we would look forward to publishing you as one of our founding stewards as when we do go public. And then going forward, we would then be working with you to measure progress against those goals. And then at the same time, We would also be able to share thought pieces. So if you published op-eds, if you gave interviews, things like that, this would be a place to put all of those in one place, so that there is this collective thought that continues to advance the ball. And then, as a steward, you would also be invited to participate in our biennial conference that we will be putting together, the first of which will be scheduled for Rome. And we would love to have you join us for those conferences. So that's really what it would entail: signing up for the guiding principles, putting forward your commitments, working with us to measure against those commitments, putting forward any kind of thought pieces that you would have that would be supportive of this, and then participating in our conferences on a go forward basis.
So, Mike, you're starting from really a very rich social teaching of the church, taking it from Rerum Novarum 130 years ago, going to the present. We have some different challenges. We're not looking at 80% of the population of the world in abject poverty, but we're looking at significant remaining problems of poverty. We have inequality that needs to be addressed. We have threats to the future, to future generations. The population at the moment seems to be a little bit skeptical of how the economic system, of how capitalism is performing, but they believe that we can do better. And you and the council are trying to gather together people who want to do better. You've got leaders together now. You've brought together folks who are, serving as your guardians. They're contributing to this effort. But at the same time, you're looking for broader engagement. And this is your opportunity to reach out to an audience of folks from business who have convictions and want to make the system work better. And I think this has been a really wonderful opportunity for us. Thanks very much for sharing the time. Thanks for the work that you have done to make this happen. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to see more from the council going forward. And again, wonderful to see you and to have the opportunity to talk. And looking forward to watching this process bear fruit. Thanks very much for participating in this webcast.
So
And
thank you very much. So thank you all, and thanks for having me, Joe. And as if anyone is interested, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I thought I had a slide in here with my contact information, but you can probably reach me through CED. But if you're listening here, my email is michaelarchbold7@gmail.com. So very simple, michaelarchbold7@gmail.com. Would love to engage in a conversation just to see whether it's of further interest. So thank you all.
so this has been an enlightening policy watch. Thanks very much to everyone who participated. We're going to be back on September 24th at noon again to have our next policy watch webcast. So we hope that you will be with us. You see on the screen right now the address to sign up to register for this series of programs and to get more information about them. So please do that. You can get information about the Committee for Economic Development at our our website, which you see there, www.ced.org. So it's been an enlightening and I hope inspiring conversation about how we can work together to make capitalism not only sustainable, but also more inclusive and more beneficial for all of God's children around the world. So, Mike, thank you very much. To everyone who has joined in on this webcast, thank you very much as well. Please click the link to provide an evaluation to help us along to make these programs better. And we'll look forward to seeing you again in September. Thank you again, and bye-bye.